Good morning, folks. This is Waking Up Cerberus to a little night music by Mozart. I like the contrast and irony, Jeff. It makes for a good show. Well, good morning, everyone. This is your co host, Gregory Junkbond Carpenter. Hiding off in the hinterlands of Utah is the super dynamic and always wonderfully awesome Suzanne Sherman. And the producer behind the scenes, and we won't see him today because he's producing. That's what producers do. They produce. Is Mr. Jeff, yeah, I can do that, Johnson. Today we have a wild and awesome roller coaster ride for you of subjects, ideas, thoughts that we're going to freely and willingly share with you out there. So before I take another breath, Miss Suzanne Sherman, please give us the particulars and the legals.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm glad to be back after a week on my vacation. I shared a little bit of our details on that on my show the other day, Mr. Johnson. Well, you were otherwise engaged, Mr. Junkbond Carpenter. So it's nice to have you join us today here on the Cerberus Radio Network, where we defend liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Cerberus Radio Network. CRN is our fan page. Come on and join us, participate. SoundCloud, if you cannot listen live, follow us on SoundCloud. You will get notifications. You can hear all of our shows, including Junkbond's very own, The Spy Who Loves Liberty, his brilliant Liberty Minutes. Love those as well. We have Case in Point that I do. I highlight certain judicial temple monkey opinions that have been handed down that affect our liberty to this very day, going back from the very get-go. We're going to get Dave Benner back on there, our favorite historian, and we're going to discuss Barron versus Baltimore. Dave's also going to rejoin us, and we're going to cover the sweeping clauses of the Constitution, which he explains in his book, Compact of the Republic. We have a YouTube page. We have a live chat. So if you are listening live on YouTube, join in the conversation. Send me messages on Facebook, and we can share your questions, comments, concerns, complaints. We will direct to our producer. How's that? I have some good news out here in Utah. A little bit of a local update. The Utah Motorsports Campus is up and running. Spring is finally here. Rental carts are available at the rental cart facility. How amazing is that? NASA racing this weekend. My son will be racing his Miata. I'm looking forward to that. SCCA Autocross also out there. Lots of fun stuff happening west of Salt Lake City. You can also see some skydiving at the same time. Eric Betcher, the survivalist. He has a great book on survival and foraging, everything you need for primitive survival if you ever get lost in the outdoors or just want to practice a really cool hobby that can possibly save your life sometime, is going to be here on Sunday. We're going to record some videos, so we will have those shared for you as well. And I think that's about all the particulars. By the way, you can find all of our shows with the SoundCloud button as well as the YouTube button on the social media bar of my website, SuzanneCSherman.com. My blogs and articles are also up there as well. Latest article came out from the 10th Amendment Center during my vacation, and we discussed that on my show. It was in response to President Trump's, in jest or not, pledge to deliver illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities. So I encourage you to read that for a perspective that you're not hearing on the other news outlets. Mr. Johnson, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. I have the day off, so I'll be around all day.
So, folks, we will be broadcasting live all day long, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if Junkbond wants to talk all day and you want to talk all day.
Well, I'm from Brooklyn. I can talk all day. You don't have to give me any type of an impetus to get me going or anything like that, Jeff. I just go.
I'm a lawyer. Give me a microphone and an audience, or even not an audience, and I can talk all day as well.
You can give her a tree stump to talk to, folks, and she'll talk all day.
Even my chickens can tell you taxation is theft. Speaking of
those cluckers,
and, you know, it had her skunk out there. She's talking its ears off too.
Yeah, I have a new pet outside, a striped kitty. He's currently incarcerated and He will be sent across the
In
river.
Facebook jail?
The what? No, no, no.
Facebook? Oh, not incarcerated in Facebook jail. Okay.
Remember the other day I told you I opened my door in the middle of the night. My cat jumped over him and he almost ran into the house. And I set the trap that next night, but after being out all winter, there was some debris under the little pad there. So he got the treats that I set out for him. I said, "Okay,
Oh,
tonight you're mine." And it didn't take long, and he was out there, and I'll deal with it after the show. And to those who say relocate him, give me your address, and I'm happy to send it over to your house.
send him over to a sanctuary city.
Exactly. I was telling Jeff before the show, I'm tempted to just release him at the county seat down here in Colville.
Oh, like they do with the illegals,
Right.
the catch and release program, of course.
Yes, catch and release. Yeah, I would not be happy if somebody was releasing skunks and raccoons and problems in my property. So, and to those who think that's okay, well, I guess it would be okay for me to just dump my trash on your property, use your garbage cans, or just dump it on your front lawn
You're
as
such a
well.
free thinker. I love that.
Yes, I am. I am. So let's see. We covered Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube. I'm not on Twitter anymore, by the way. I got a 12-hour ban. They don't know me. They should have gone straight to 30 going by my list of priors on Facebook. But Dinesh D'Souza, being consistently stupid, posted something and I just fired off. Gosh, you're such a tard. Okay. Twitter says you cannot make fun of somebody's mental disabilities. So apparently Twitter is confirming that Dinesh D'Souza is retarded. You heard it here, folks.
That's awesome. How could they take a stand like that after they? No, so okay, so they confirm the fact that he's an idiot,
Yeah. But I got the ban. And they want
but
to
you
phone
got the ban. Yeah,
They want my phone number. So I just say, I don't like Twitter anyway. So no, I'm not on Twitter anymore. So
that's awesome.
I know. I thought so. So what's going on? Junk Bond, you go first.
No, I don't have. No, I want you to.
Pretty
You're
fired
supposed to lead this thing this morning.
Jeff's
I'm-
fired up. We had to listen to him rant and rave before the show. Let's let him go first. He's got some news.
Oh, sure. Be that way. Make
Yeah.
me
Jeff,
go
Jeff,
first.
you drew the short hair straw.
All right. Well, we just had an article from Erie News here in Pennsylvania. This is a local story. I just figured we're going to start with something local to
Wait,
me.
let's clarify first, real quick, Jeff, just so people understand. It's ERIE, not EERIE.
Yes, it's not eerie like woo, scary.
Right.
It is
Some people
like-
actually don't know that in that part of the country. That's how you
Like
spell
waves.
Erie.
Going across the Lake Erie. So,
Right.
So that's the difference. And, so, hey,
You're welcome. It's a service I provide for free.
it is. People would never know it was Lake Erie because of Erie News. But
No.
I digress. All right.
You're a good man, Jeff.
The PA.
I don't care what everybody says.
I know you don't.
This is the part of the show where we're warming up, folks, in case you figured that out.
PA Auditor General says 4.2 billion like
Mini.
in gas tax money was not spent on roads and bridges as intended. 2.2 billion. Now you have to realize, now what gets me so worked up about this is that Pennsylvania now is the highest tax state on gasoline and fuels.
Wherever did that money go?
Well, obviously, it didn't
Not
go
Jersey.
to roads and bridges that was supposed to go. So when they passed this back in 2013, and before all you Pennsylvanians out there start screaming about how bad the Democrats are, this was when the Republicans had the House. Oh, well, it's the Assembly, the Senate, and Governor Corbett. So it was all Republicans, 100% Republican that passed the highest gas tax in these United States on the
Wow.
people of Pennsylvania. So take that and smoke it in your pipe. You R is good, D is bad people. So
Assembly required. Some assembly required.
very much the assembly required.
I
But
prefer
according to Roads and bridges didn't get it. This started in 2013, as I said. More than 2,800 state maintained bridges across America, or Pennsylvania, America, are structurally deficient, and our bridges average over 50 years in age. So that 4.25 billion was supposed to fix those. And if they did use that money, they could have got it to a zero number, zero bridges that are deficient in 5 years. But they didn't. So where did that money go? So here we go. That didn't go to the roads and bridges. Where did it go? Well, it went to the PA State Police. So the PA
Why?
State did a little research. What's that?
Why did it go to them?
To
I
keep
don't
us
know.
junk bond. What's wrong with you?
Keep us
My bad.
safe.
My bad.
So in 2017-18 budget year, Pennsylvania, in the budget, appropriated to the state police $734 million. So, and in the 2017-18 year, they were capped at getting from the road fund. And I'm only assuming that this was in addition to what was appropriated in the budget, another 789 million. So, okay, there's 4,700 or 719 state troopers. Average salary 73,824. This 789 million that was given to them in addition to their budget averages out to $167,196 per trooper. If they're only getting 73 from the budget, now there's another $168,000 appropriate. Where in the freak is all this money going? Over $1.5 billion. Where is all this money going if it's obviously not going to the state troopers? Can we say that this is just as bad as the federal government? They appropriate money and they squandered on everything else. It doesn't matter whether it's the federal government or the state government. That's why we need much less government. We need a lot more local government and a lot less central governments. So here we got in Pennsylvania a perfect picture of what's wrong in Washington, D.C. because it's happening even on the state levels. So any comments from you guys on this? Because it's just, I'm at a loss for this. I have no idea. I mean, I really don't. I don't know why there's all this money for 4,000 officers.
This is why I say when people argue constantly about whoever is in office at this time at the DC level, and we got to fix Washington, DC, tyrannical, wasteful, oppressive government is at every single level. I don't care if it is from Washington, D.C., your state, your county, your city, your local HOA. The people that seem to be attracted to these positions seem to have this mindset that they have come from some sort of colony where they, for some reason, know better than we do what's good for us, what's good for our lives. And how many times have I talked about local ordinances that have prohibited people from growing vegetables in their front garden, in their front yard? Well, put it in the backyard. Well, we don't have sunlight there. We have shade. We don't care. We have a compelling interest in uniformity. Well, wait a minute. I thought you tyrants like diversity. So there's no consistency here. The only answer really is a government that exists solely to defend our liberties, our life, and property. End of story. But they cannot resist taking more control any means they can. With regards to the police officers, I've shared this story before. A couple that are police officers in my father's community, my parents' community in California, warned my dad, hey, make sure when you're driving, you stop at every stop sign to the point where your wheels are not moving. Use your turn signal every time. Do not go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, because we have been told by our leaders, our commanders, to pull anyone over because we need to keep the road safe. I'm just kidding. We're having a budget shortfall and we need to make up for it. So we're going to arrest, detain. That's exactly what a traffic stop is. It is a seizure. It is an arrest. We're going to detain people. We're going to stop them with our lights, our vehicles, and ultimately with the threat of a gun so we can make up for the mismanagement and the fiscal irresponsibility of the clowns that have been put in office. So stop complaining about Washington. And this is what my dad told me. He warned me. I said, what the hell? Why didn't you stand up to him and say, I refuse to do this? I'm not a revenue collector. I'm not a road pirate. I'm a peace officer. Our good friend Ted Wirtz that listens to this said the same thing. Remember when I showed you that video? I posted that on my show. It was a police officer saying, my citizens, we have been entrusted with the responsibility of enforcing a law that says you have to put this decal on your car. If you do not put it on and you live in town limits, you will get a citation. We will forgive this citation, though, if you just come in and pay the $15 per vehicle.
This is exciting.
Does a decal on your vehicle? By the way, we already pay the Crown for our horseless carriage permit every year. How does that make us safer? Junk Bond, you're a lot smarter than I am. How does that make our community safer?
See, the stickers, it builds the economy by sticker production. And that's what reinforces our ability to be the predominant, I would have to say the only expansionist empire on the face of the earth. That's how it makes us better, Suzanne. You obviously missed the important points of this. It's about imperialism and international expansionism. And that's how we're better people.
Well,
You don't
it's really
like that answer, do you,
here we
Jeff?
are. I just this week had the pleasure, and I expressed my displeasure on the outside of the envelope and on the check. I just sent in big bold letters on the bottom corner of my envelope, it said 2019 Bradford County extortion payment. And on the check, in the memo, that's exactly the same thing I wrote on that. I want everyone to know that I just sent my extortion payment for my property. And if I'm on
just
road,
like
I
you
got
told me to, Jeff.
extortion payment every time I cross their little arbitrary barrier of speed. So, every time we turn around, we have some sort of fee that we must pay government because we exist.
Now, Jeff has told us to do this before, right? The extortion payment information on the front so everybody can see and everybody will be forced to at least think about the fact that it's an extortion payment. I took that advice, Jeff, and I did that on my servitude tribute to the internal. What would you call them? I guess they're not really an internal revenue service. They don't have any revenue. The official taxpayer, the money stealer. We have to think of some type of a really good term for these guys at the IRS. But I wrote myself a check for over $30,000 on top of what I've already paid them this year. And I wrote on there to the federal extortion specialists. And I included a sad face. And I wrote it on the front of the envelope too. I used their address. You know how they have their address there, but instead of writing IRS, I just wrote federal extortion specialists. I hope it gets the point across to somebody somewhere. There's probably going to be somebody sitting there in Washington going, "Look at this idiot, another freaking idiot. This is the price we have to pay for a civilized society. Don't you understand that?"
Okay, fine. Let's have a civilized society then. We don't have one.
That's what I'm thinking. Where do we start?
I couldn't miss the irony as I was mailing. See, I set myself up so I didn't pay any federal taxes this year because I could just affordable income.
You let them take it, yeah.
But I did have to pay the overlords in Utah $78. And as I wrote that check, I couldn't help but notice the irony as I'm putting a stamp that says Liberty on the envelope. And then our Brian Baucom, my meme dealer, posted a picture that showed an envelope, and it has a little square place stamp here, and then he put a stamp that says Liberty outside the borders. We rebel. We rebel where we can.
Well, here's the thing. For all the people out there think that, oh, well, we gotta pay government to do this because if we don't, who's going to do it? Well, the,
Maybe you
in
get off your ass and do it
before
yourself.
1913, we had roads, we had bridges, we had schools, we fought wars, and you know what? There was no income tax. There was very little direct taxing. Prior to that, it was mostly imposts and duties, and
Tariffs,
we
right.
somehow
And
managed.
alcohol tax. Alcohol tax. That's why
Well, there
you
was
ended up with the trade-off to allow prohibition to come into play. Yeah, there
That's
was the
I was
trade-off
having
there.
a conversation with somebody exactly that people don't see the interplay and the relation between the income tax and prohibition. Jump on, run with that as I turn and take.
Hold on a second. Before we go there,
Okay.
the fact of the matter is, getting back to my point. The fact of the matter is, all this stuff happened, and how did it happen? The private sector. The private sector stepped up and was able to do all this stuff, and it didn't cost the taxpayers. I hate that term because I'm not a taxpayer. I'm a citizen. A taxpayer is a resource. That's just something where the government you are providing money for government. You're just a resource. So we don't need taxes. We don't need government to accomplish these things. But that's the lie that we've been told. This is the price we pay for a civilized society. Go with that whole thing there. That's Suzanne.
I'd like some commentary on the people in Yemen about how civilized we are, but I digress. Junk Bond, I'll let you go
Yeah,
back
man.
to make.
I'm going to throw in one other thing too. Every veteran from every war before 1913, every veteran who signed up and served in a militia or was called to federal duty received a pension. Not just the people that, quote, retire after 20 years. If you were called away from your job, if you were called away from your farm, if you were called away from your store that you owned, you were given a federal pension based on the amount of time served, campaigns you were in, a lot of different factors involved. It was not something that you needed a lawyer to decipher for you either. If you go back and look at the muster rolls in the Revolutionary War, you can see where each of the soldiers from the congressional record shows where they were paid out a pension afterwards. The War of 1812, they were paid a pension if they signed up for 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, whatever it was. And this was enlisted and officers as well. Even in the Uncivil War, I had a great grandmother who filed for a pension when my great grandfather passed away because he didn't receive it when he was alive. He died just during the war. And she received that pension until 1904. And we could do all those things without having a, quote, federal income tax requirement. There were a lot of things at play in creating the income tax, and the income tax was a trade off for prohibition. Prohibition had been pushed, and ever since the 1830s, and there was the women's temperance movement and several other organizations that pushed along the notion that Americans drank a lot and Americans got more drunk than anybody else in the world. And of course, again, that's the price we have to pay for freedom, I guess, is that we have freedom. So therefore, we're free to misbehave past the point of where we should. Interesting thing during that same time period in the 1800s in the United States and in the European countries, nations, empires, which existed back then, if you look at the alcohol consumption ratios per capita per adult, you're going to see that we didn't drink that much more than the Europeans did. But we did drink on binge. They drank more regularly, spread out during the day. different times they would have wine with lunch, with dinner, maybe a cocktail after, something like that. Our folks would abstain all day long and then go into the bar at night or in the afternoon where they conducted business, because business was conducted in the bars and saloons in America from, gosh, the inception of this nation, prior to the inception of this nation, all the way through the 1890s, 1900s or so.
I think there
That's
was a tavern in Boston some guys used to hang out in. Can you imagine if they had pontificated and discussed and said, "Now we might get into trouble"?
sure. And right down a few miles from me here was the Raleigh Tavern, where the House of Burgesses moved to. They conducted, they had their assembly form in the tavern itself, so they could legislate for themselves. It's an amazing thing. That's where all the business was conducted. So they would stay there and they would drink on through their problems and drink on through the solutions.
Isn't the Raleigh Tavern where they went to? I believe George Washington said, "Let's to the Raleigh," after the governor shut down the House of Burgesses.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just adding some historical context to what you were
Yeah, it
saying.
wasn't Washington that said it. It was one of the other guys there.
Okay.
And Washington reaffirmed. He said yes to the Raleigh.
One of the other slaveholders.
Yes. So they went there and they conducted the business of the people in
Of
the
the Commonwealth.
after
Yes.
the Commonwealth. Yep. After the King's governor shut them down because of I believe it was the Virginia Declaration of Rights. Am I correct? Is that right after that they?
You are correct, sir. Yes, that's
okay.
Very good, Jeff.
There is some history to this, people, and I mean, we really need to start thinking about separating ourselves. So here we go.
Destroying the place of business here. Hold on, Jeff. So let me finish the thought here, because I know I'm a little long-winded, but destroying our place of business meant that economic factors had to be adjusted. And the people that were pushing for the prohibition conceded the fact that there would be a progressive income tax only on the rich and the higher levels, right? This was not supposed to affect anybody at the, I would say, the upper middle class down. That's how few people were supposed to be paying income tax back in the day, and the laws have been changed since then numerous times to ensure that we include everybody, because we have to include everybody. Now, income tax was supposed to be a supplement only to the removal of funds coming into the feds from the tariffs and taxes that were on alcoholic beverages, because that was going to be a loss. So it's just supposed to be a supplement for a period of time, or whatever the duration was going to be. And of course, they had the amendments go in, which made it, which was baffling to me at the time, because they had already done and created so many laws that were outside of their authority in the Constitution. But it was one of those things that they wanted to accentuate it and say, okay, you really can't fight this because there's actually an amendment here, knowing full well that all the other laws that had been written up and passed were all unconstitutional. They did this in and said that, okay, now it's really, really, really constitutional. Doggone it! You're gonna you're gonna have to do another amendment if you want to undo this mess. And of course, that ushered in the mafia, the lawlessness throughout the 20s and into the 30s, which created the immoral society that we have today.
You know, I mentioned that in my article, Parchment to, what is it? Prohibition, I believe it was. I have to look up the title, but it's essentially what we can learn about the drug laws that we've had and the Prohibition era. And that was absolutely constitutional. But what was the fallout from that? Well, we have the 1934 Firearms Act, and What did we have as a result of the 1945? That was a result of the gang violence that you just mentioned. So now, because of the 1934 Firearms Act, we're having all of these proposed bans on the assault rifle, the AR-15, where Eric Swalwell from California, who's now going to be running for president, has said that in California, when he's a legislator there, they can do this. Okay, we know that. Actually, many people don't know that, but now what he's saying is that this is a man that now wants to do this at a federal, at a national, pardon my French, level and ban these rifles. Look at my article published by the 10th Amendment Center. It's also on my website. It's easier to find there. It's called Muskets to AR-15s. And we have capitulated many conservatives saying, well, we don't need these on the streets. You know, my friends are cops and they're outgunned. The point of prohibiting the general government from regulating firearms at all was to ensure that these citizens, the militia, anybody capable of using a firearm would be just as well armed as members of the government. Why? To prevent personal assault, to allow you to defend yourself from personal assault, and to prevent tyranny. We have capitulated that.
You remember that, again, another really interesting point here from what Suzanne's talking about is that the word militia, how do you respond when somebody says militia? Do you think of happiness? Do you think of a good, strong organization that's there to help you? Or do you have negative connotations about this organization? Most people have a negative connotation about it nowadays.
We could thank the media for that.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. It's like, how did this happen? Well, we walked right into the trap that the media set for us, and we took it and we ran with it. The concept of the militia was supposed to be a warm and fuzzy. It wasn't supposed to be something that we feared. It wasn't supposed to be something that uh, made us think that there's a bunch of lunatics out there who just can't wait to get their hands on some guns and start shooting up the town. That's not a militia.
Junk
That's a bunch of lunatics that were out there to shoot up the town.
A while back, there was a story. It spread like wildfire across all the, these pundits on the mainstream media about a right-wing Christian militia group who's planning to set off bombs at funerals of police officers. I mean, this could not be more inflammatory to people's emotions. The whole thing was a setup with confidential informants. Charges were all dismissed, but you never heard about that on the news. Karl Rove said once you get this impression in the public's mind, you cannot unring that bell. He would know. So here's the thing. This spread across like wildfire, evil white Christian militias bombing police officers' funerals, charges dismissed, lies by an FBI rogue agency, confidential informant. The truth never came out that all charges were dismissed. By the way, the article I mentioned earlier is called Parchment and Plants, What Alcohol Prohibition Can Teach Us About the Drug War. And again, we have these draconian prohibitions, the war on drugs, again, unconstitutional. I will say this, at least prohibition, dubious as it was passed by a constitutional amendment. By the way, when that was repealed, did they repeal the income tax since the two were tied together? No. Who always wins? Government. What always expands? Government. Who always loses? We do.
It sounds like we should have some pom-poms out there.
Woohoo!
Good Lord. But, and you're absolutely right, though. The citizens are the ones who are squeezed all the time. We haven't won anything substantial in when? And it's interesting because I think of the what was it, the Twilight Zone episode. We've watched it a million times, Jeff. The Obsolete Man. When the chancellor is the guy dictating how Burgess Meredith is going to die because he is obsolete. He's a librarian and he no longer is needed because, quote, there are no books. And
Wait. I
as
just saw
soon
a
as
bookmobile driving up my county road. So what was in it?
you saw a what?
A bookmobile.
A book. Oh my gosh. Audiobooks.
Do they mean to tell us that people cannot find their way to the library? You have to have books delivered to your house. If you're that freaking lazy, you're not going to read a book. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So Burgess Meredith goes. They quote liquidate him, and the chancellor gets stuck in Burgess Meredith's apartment for a certain amount of time, and begs him to let him out. And he finally lets him out. He says, "For God's sakes, please let me out." And Burgess Meredith said, "Yes, for God's sake, I will let you out." So
I
he
have
lets him out.
saying that on my front lawn right now. Sorry.
And then of course, the state had proven that there was no God either. And the chancellor was very adamant about that. So when he walks back into his office the next day, he's the one on trial because he has embarrassed the state. And all of a sudden, it dawns on him what he had done to Burgess Meredith. And because he was obsolete now, he had embarrassed the state. He was no longer of any use, even though he was a very high ranking official. He now was in the part of the victim, of the everyday citizen. And all of a sudden, all those laws that were created came crashing down around him. Imagine if you take the Senate, the Congress at the national level, and El Presidente, and force them into the position of a just everyday citizen and have to respond to all of these demands and requirements as an everyday citizen. The Federal Extortion Service, the IRS, you have to do what? You have to go out and fill out your taxes every year. If you get it wrong, what happens? You get penalized, you go to jail, but they're the ones telling you what the right answer is. So they already should know the answer based on what you submit. They should know the answer already. So why don't they just tell you what the answer is? What is it? You want 20%? You want 27%? 46%? 59%? Whatever it is. Just tell me what the right answer is and I won't have to go to jail. It's insane. It's just ridiculous. They know the answer and you don't, and you have to guess. And if you get it right, you get to stay out of jail for another year. How nice.
There's a lobby, I'm sure, behind this. It's called the Certified Public Accountant professional groups. I mean, how about the tax companies? What is it? TurboTax. This is a huge business helping
Industry, yes.
figure out yes, it's an industry. Business kind of implies it's a cottage business, but yes, there's a huge industry that benefits from this because it is so complicated we can't do it ourselves, and because we don't want to get interests and penalties and all these other threats, it's a lot easier and we feel safer. I do this, I hire somebody to do mine because I don't want threats of audits. I don't want to deal with this. So on top of what we owe, we have to pay somebody sometimes over $1,000 a year to do this for us.
But don't worry, you can deduct that off your taxes.
Right.
Yeah, so you get like an extra 4% of that amount to take off. One of the things that really irks me is a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I was talking to someone with Barbara Honegger. And if you don't know who that is, she worked on the federal staff, right, at the White House under Reagan. And back in February 1981, there was a meeting with the CIA director at the time, William Casey. She was in the room. And one of the, quote, leaked comments that came out, she said, or she didn't say, but William Casey said, quote, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American people believes is false."
Mission accomplished.
Let that sink in for a minute about what the heck is really going on and what you're being told. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American people believes is false. If you want it, I have copies of the emails between me, the other guy, and Barbara Honegger, where she came out and said, yes, I leaked that. William Casey said that. How's that for friggin' backup?
Well, what
That's
did
how bad this stuff is, folks.
what
That's
did
how
Eric
bad it is.
say about firearms? We need to brainwash the American people into thinking that guns are bad. I forgot who it was, but one of my friends was sharing a story that their child, a family member's child, I think it was a niece or something, was feeling having some anxiety and fears about their safety. And so he was talking about firearms, personal protection, that sort of thing, and how the parents can keep them safe. And the child said, "No, guns are bad. We can't have those." He goes, "Where did you hear that?" "Well, my teacher in school told me that." And we see that when you put your kids in the education system here, government education compulsory, by the way, the overwhelming majority is hardcore left leaning. Again, there are a few out there that are not, but this
Pillar
is
10 of the Communist Manifesto. Pillar 10. We'll guess. So I'm not saying another word.
absolutely. And this is why they can afford it. Remember when I mentioned Eric Swalwell, he was saying that if there's a war over guns, we've got the nukes. And people find that acceptable.
Well, it's
They think,
comforting to know that you guys are going to shoot. We'll just blow the heck out of you. We will completely annihilate you from the face of the earth. Problem solved. See, now, isn't that much better than just having to worry about guns, Suzanne?
absolutely,
Don't
absolutely.
you feel comfortable now?
I forgot where I was going with that, but did you see the story that here? Let me find this. This is in the Federalist. What's his name here? Comic Con bans actor Kevin Sorbo because he's a conservative. Now he stars in these Christian movies. God is Not Dead. I love him. I love those movies, but he has been banned from appearing on there because he has conservative views. And he says that the entertainment industry is comprised, this is hardly newsworthy, of some of the least tolerant people you will meet. Now he's finding that convention organizers outside of Hollywood even appear to be worse. So he's blacklisted at Marvel over politics, has been for this is, let's see, the ban marks a latest string of escalating leftist vigilantism and trying to purge conservative artists from the marketplace. 2017, prolific comic writer Chuck Dixon said, "I'm blacklisted at Marvel over politics and have been for 15 years. In 2018, the stakes have been raised, and Sorbo's banning marks the first time the organizer of a public event openly discriminated against an actor over conservative associations." And the owner has said, "I simply cannot have him appear here." So again, we have this acceptance of discrimination against Christians. And when I was on earlier this week, I was sharing with Jeff some commentary over Canadian courts ruling that LGBTQ LMNOP rights are superior and must dominate religious beliefs. And unfortunately, the comment was, or the article was shared by a member of my family's friend. I'm not going to get into who that was, but his comment was good. And what he then said was, "Well, you should never shun somebody over who they love." Really? Now, let me give you a little bit more background into this. This same person, I was personally there when he bragged about making a girl cry over calling her faith a fairy tale.
Hmm.
First of all, what kind of a man makes a woman cry intentionally and then not only doesn't try to apologize, but brags about it? Is that not the very shunning that he just decried? but it is okay to do it if it is a God-fearing woman and to shun her for her faith. But then to say that you cannot shun somebody over who they love. And this is tolerated. It is okay to discriminate against Christians, but Christians cannot politely decline to do business with somebody because of their philosophical beliefs. But it is okay here. And when I shared this article, I said, I hope the Bake the Cake crowd is okay with this. The problem is, Dwayne Stovall said, I'm okay with this. I said, you're not part of the Bake the Cake crowd. I think freedom of association is imperative in a society that has mutual respect. If you choose not to do business or associate with somebody, that is your call. Your business will either suffer or prosper accordingly, depending on what the people in your community feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Comic-Con should be compelled to allow anybody in they want based on their political beliefs or otherwise. But by the same token, for God's sakes, will you leave people trying to run their own businesses alone? They are being destroyed financially, incredible fines. The courts are against them. Why? As I said before, when we talked about the planks of communism, Agenda 21, to enable a one world or a draconian central government. It's going to start here and go around the world. You have to substitute the individual for the collective. To do that, you have to usurp our traditional values, our family, our faith, because this ideology is in direct contravention to the end game, which is to rule us completely. They can only do that if we are immoral, have no values, and reliant on others for our very survival. Thoughts, gentlemen?
That was pretty deep. And I think it's pretty accurate. Our complete and total livelihood is a limiting factor, meaning that we have the ability to be able to enjoy life to the extent that government allows now.
Mm-hmm.
It is the concept. I had written about this on newsel.org a long time ago. Power enabling liberty, liberty enabling power. Sounds the same, but it is the complete opposite concept. We don't have the ability to live, be free, and have the liberties we are designed to have because of the power that is being consolidated and is continuing to grow at a substantial and exponential rate in one specific aspect of our union. So, how do we deal with that? How do we work with that? How do we get around that type of an issue? Well, you have to really think differently. And it's going to take a lot of people to actually stand up and complain and do something about it. Other than that, it's going to take a lot of us to move to one part of this union and make a stand and say, okay, guess what? We're against everything that's going on with this. We are moving out. We are taking ourselves and moving to a completely different political, socio-political standard, and we're not going to be part of this destruction and this. We like to use the word in the military jackassery. We're not going to be part of this anymore. I'm not going to pay 60% of my income just to support and sustain all these other people who I have no idea who they are. I don't even know who gets my money. Probably senators get most of my money. I don't even know. But that's my thought. Jeff?
Well, we have come to a point where the government is going to outlaw Christianity because every Marxist country and every Marxist government always goes after the church because they can't have a God that competes with the God of government. So here we go. We got Canada outlawing or putting LGB rights over a natural right to worship as you see fit. They have passed laws in Ontario to take children out of the homes of parents that oppose gender transition or whatever. It is coming to the point where the church is going to be driven underground. And a few people out there really believe that we are a free country, that we aren't socialist. I know Trump said we're not a socialist country. He is
Sure.
about 120 years too late on that. I mean, we are well beyond the point. We have all 10 pillars of Marx's Communist Manifesto. We are socialists. We are practically communists. We just have not gotten to the outright open tyranny where they're shooting people because of their beliefs. But that's
we're to the point where people in Russia are going, damn, they got socialism pretty well.
Let me give you a little bit more background too into the story of this individual. Before the start of one of the races last year, they played the national hymn, the national anthem,
Right.
and everybody stood and put their hands on their hearts and took their hats off. I just politely walk away. And as we're doing that, this gentleman looks at me and points to my hat and tells me and does a motion to take my hat off. And I just shook my head and walked away. I'm not going to stand there and be rude or kneel or do, something stupid like that, but I will politely walk away. And here's my point. His God is government. He will make a girl cry over her faith, but stand, take his hat off, and put his heart on his head for a song. Let me read you the words inscripted in the Lincoln Memorial. A man hailed, as Mark Levin would say, the greatest emancipator of all times.
Holy cow.
That's pretty good, huh?
I thought that was really Mark Levin.
We have a special guest calling in, the so-so one.
You big dummy.
He went to war to collect a tax. He did not go to war to free slaves. Here's what it says in the Lincoln Memorial. In this temple, as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, no, he destroyed it. The memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. What is the temple, ladies and gentlemen? An edifice erected as a place of public worship, a church, especially a large or imposing one. Nobody was more imposing than that tyrant, rat bastard. But what are we taught in the education system? He is a hero that saved the Union. I submit to you, every single problem of national, pardon my French, contention we are having right now is a result of what happened with him. Going back further, Alexander Hamilton, Junk Bond, you were talking about pensions. Alexander Hamilton liked having pensions for the military because it ensured loyalty of former soldiers to the general government. This constitutional crisis we are having is nothing new. Don't blame Obama. Don't blame the Democrats. The constitutional crisis is that we abandoned the Articles of Confederation for the Constitution. That makes people's heads explode, but you have to really think about it. Eventually, if you're still listening, you'll realize that we're right here, but nobody else will say that.
Can I get reparations because my ancestors abandoned the Articles of Confederation?
Right.
I think there's been damage done to me and my country because of that, and we demand reparations.
And remember, I wrote this article. It's called The Church of National Government. Again, 10th Amendment Center published it. You can find it on my website, SuzanneCSherman.com. Donald Trump said, here in America, we worship God, not government. 60 million plus murdered babies unavailable for comment. We have states that say you can eviscerate and pull a baby out of its mother's body and crush its skull up to the time it is born. We should have, if you believe we need federal troops at the border to protect Americans from crime, then put these damn troops at the abortuariums and save these babies' lives. What is the matter with people? I'm getting a little fired up here.
I see that, and it's a good cause. I read an article from one of the journals just yesterday, as a matter of fact. I was trying to think of what day it was, but it was yesterday, and it said there was conclusive proof now that babies, even at the age of 20 weeks, when they're aborted, feel nothing less than excruciating pain, which is even worse than the pain that they have during childbirth, because the neurological sensors are condensed and developing, and they're extremely sensitive at that point. So there is no greater pain than a baby would feel than between 20 and 26 weeks. And that's overturns a Planned Parenthood study that was done in 2005 that a lot of people go to and cite as the gold standard, saying that no, babies don't feel pain. Well, here's the reality is they do, and they feel a whole lot of it. You want to make yourself feel good? Tell yourself babies don't feel pain. You want the truth? Do the right thing.
Yeah, if only people could hear them scream. My youngest son was born at 35 weeks. When he was born, I was still under general anesthesia. We both almost died. His blood sugar was low, so they gave my husband at the time, his dad, a little bottle to give him some formula and get that blood sugar up. My son was pouting. He had that lower pout lip because he was hungry.
Mm.
And when my husband put that bottle close to him, he reached out and grabbed it and put it to his mouth and drank. I had a gal tell me, well, these are just clumps of cells. When we are talking about babies up till the time of delivery, this is not just a clump of cells. Her response to that was, well, they have to have their own memories and experiences. Well, gee, I don't remember anything till I was about 3 years old. What
Memories
about,
and
All
I like
right,
the old folks.
guys, are we going into a second hour or
No,
are we done?
We'll wrap up the show. Jump on, why don't you close us out? I want to thank everybody for listening.
Oh my gosh, you're going to give me that much pressure? Yeah, this is terrible, folks. Nobody has memories. Ask any 80-year-old. Most of them can't remember anything anymore. And we've done that to ourselves again because we've over medicated people and done the wrong thing for so many years. Folks, we want to thank you very much for stopping in this morning and hanging out with us on Waking Up Cerberus. This is Gregory Carpenter on behalf of everyone here, Suzanne Sherman and Jeff Johnson, wishing you the most great, wonderful, awesome, and blessed Fridays, and have yourself an awesome weekend. We'll see you back here Monday.